I've had this for a bit now, and a few people ask me about it, so here is my take, based on actually using it in the kind of spaces people really buy these for. I have been running it in my garage, out on the patio, and a couple times in the driveway while I was working on my car. If you are dealing with dry heat and you want something that feels more effective than a regular fan, this type of cooler can make sense. If you live somewhere humid and sticky, this is usually the wrong tool, and I will talk about that in a minute. An evaporative cooler is not an air conditioner. It does not use a compressor, and it does not magically turn a closed room cold. What it does is move air through wet pads. That evaporation pulls heat out of the air, and the fan pushes that cooler air toward you. The way it feels in real life is more like a strong, cool breeze instead of refrigerated air. In the right conditions, it is a noticeable relief, especially when you are standing in the airflow. What makes this one interesting to me is how straightforward it is. It is a large box on wheels with a big fan, a water tank, and a simple control panel. No screens, no pairing, no updates, no app. I know the outline I am following mentions smart features and mobile app support, but on this model there really are not any. Honestly, I did not miss them. When it is hot and I am sweaty in the garage, I want a knob I can turn without thinking. Build and design-wise, it looks industrial. It is gray plastic, and it feels like the kind of plastic meant to get scuffed up and keep going. The body is light enough that I can move it without struggling, but it does not feel flimsy. The wheels are a big part of that. They are not tiny furniture wheels. They roll over concrete and the little cracks in my driveway without getting hung up. I have dragged it around extension cords and it has not tipped or done anything weird. It is a big unit though. You need to plan where it lives because it takes up real floor space. Up top, the controls are simple. There is a control for the pump, fan speeds, and a swing function that moves the airflow side to side. That swing is useful when I am moving around the garage, and I do not want the airflow locked in one direction. There is also an easy way to see the water level, which matters more than you might think, because these can burn through water faster on the hottest, driest days. Setup in practice was easy. I rolled it into the garage, kept it a little away from the wall so it could breathe, and filled the tank. You can fill it from a big access opening or connect a garden hose to keep it topped off. I used a water jug most of the time because I move it around. When I left it in one place for a longer stretch, the hose hookup was just simpler. The tank holds about 10 gallons. In my use, that usually meant I was thinking about refilling after around 3 to 4 hours when it was really hot and dry. If the day was a little milder, it stretched longer. It also has a float valve, so if you use a hose, it can shut off and avoid overflowing. Daily use is basically the same routine every time. Fill it, plug it into a normal wall outlet, turn on the pump, wait about a minute so the pads get fully wet, then pick a fan speed. The difference between pump on and pump off is very obvious. With the pump off, it is just a big fan. With the pump on, you get that cool, dampened air that actually feels like relief. I tested it most in my garage, which is about 400 square feet. I am not going to claim it turned the whole garage into a chilled room, because that is not how these work. What it did do was make the part of the garage where I was working feel comfortable enough to stay out there. If I stood in the direct airflow, I felt the cooling immediately, like within seconds. If I stepped out of the airflow, the effect was still there, just less intense. It is very much a directional cooler. The swing helps, and so does aiming it at the area you actually occupy. Ventilation matters. If I cracked the garage door or opened a side door a bit, it worked better. That is not optional in a closed space. These add moisture to the air, and that moisture needs somewhere to go. If I tried to run it with the garage sealed up, I could feel the air getting heavier after a while, and the cooling effect dropped off. With some airflow out of the space, it stayed comfortable and did what I wanted it to do. Outside on the patio, it was even easier. In dry heat, it gave me a cool stream of air while I was grilling and setting up chairs. That is actually one of my favorite uses for it, because you are not trying to cool a whole structure. You just want to feel less cooked while you are standing there. Noise is something people ask about. On low and medium, it is a steady fan sound that did not bother me. I could still talk over it. On high, you definitely hear it. It is not an irritating whine, more like a strong airflow roar, but I would not run it on max right next to someone on a phone call and expect it to disappear into the background. For me, the trade-off was fair because high is what I used when the heat was at its worst. Maintenance has been pretty manageable. I do not baby it, but I do try to keep it from getting funky. If I know I am done for the day, I will run the fan for a bit with the pump off so the pads can dry out instead of staying wet. Every so often I drain the tank and rinse it, especially if I have been using a hose, because mineral buildup is a real thing in a lot of areas. It is not hard, just part of owning an evaporative cooler. If you ignore that part, you can end up with smells or gunk, and that is on the user, not the machine. Limitations are important here. If you live somewhere with high humidity, the cooling effect drops a lot, and you can end up feeling sticky instead of comfortable. If you want something that behaves like central air conditioning in a sealed room, this is not that. Also, you have to deal with water. If you are not using a hose, refilling is just part of the routine. For some people, that is no big deal. For others, it is a deal breaker. Overall, my experience with the Hessaire MFC3600 has been simple. In hot, dry conditions, it gives me a noticeable cooling effect where I actually need it, and it is easy to move around and easy to operate without thinking. It is not a miracle box, and it does not replace an air conditioner for whole house cooling, but for a garage, workshop, patio, or driveway in dry heat, it has done what I bought it to do. If you have been using one of these in a different climate, or you have tips on keeping the pads and tank clean, drop a comment. Subscribe to the channel if you want more real-world reviews like this. Thank you for watching.